Hello everyone, my name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The Black Cat, written by Edgar Allan Poe. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, this work by Edgar Allan Poe is it is scary. From my perspective at least. This is a short story. It's not that long, but it's scary. Because we have a narrator here that at first he basically tells you that he's about to die. Okay? So the narrator that is talking to us for this short story scares me. Because he tells us that he's about to die. And he's pretty much telling us the truth of why he's about to die. And throughout the short story, you get to know why he's about to be hung. This was written in a time within America where men drank, okay? This was in a time in America where there was no regulation of alcohol. People just drank alcohol from sunrise to sunset. There was no such thing as moderation. Kids were drinking, adults were drinking, people were dying young, people were living it up. This was written in a time in America when pretty much, white men could do whatever they want. This is the 19th century here, so it's just men are beating their wives, drinking. There's brothels in America. There's just a bunch of things going on. There's slavery. It was in America where it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty because within this short story we get so much stuff. There's animal cruelty. There's domestic violence, domestic murder. We see a cat being beaten and mutilated. Oh my god. This short story, it deserves a read. Like, if you want to read it, you should definitely read it. It's just so appalling and scary and disturbing. And you wouldn't think that so much horror would be packed into such a short story like this. Let's just talk about the summary here. So from the get-go, the narrator tells us that I'm going to die. I'm going to be hung. I'm going to die. We're not really told why from the get-go. We don't really know where he is from the get-go. It's just that we know that he's about to die. We get an account of him as a child. He had a good childhood. He had pets. He loved animals. He loved dogs and he loved every animal. Cats, birds, whatever. He even has a little monkey within this work. So he grew up with animals and there was nothing wrong. He loved them. He loved the animals. They loved him. Everything was peachy perfect. Everything was just wonderful and warm and just welcoming. And his childhood passed. And this narrator, he gets married. And everything's amazing. Everything's great. We pretty much learned that he has money. He's not wealthy to the point where he's in the upper class, but he has enough money to live in a good place. He has a wife. He has enough money to afford a bunch of pets. I mean, he has a little monkey. He has goldfish, birds, a dog. This cat by the name of Pluto. Poor Pluto. Oh God. So this narrator from we know this is going to be dark because he already tells us he's pretty much about to get killed, that he's going to die. But from after we get introduced to that idea, he seemed like he had a good life. He had a good childhood. He wasn't growing up in the slums somewhere. He wasn't he didn't struggle as a kid. He has finances. He has this woman that he's married to. His life seems fine. But again, he drinks a lot. And in the 19th century, women were getting beaten a lot. Women who were in marriages. I mean, the 19th century. Okay, we're in the 21st century now. If you were a woman of any kind, or African American, or in a minority group of any kind in the past, life wasn't good for you. Just life wasn't good for you. I would say it's at the tail end of the 20th century that every minority group started to have rights and have the ability to have a good life. If you're a white woman, a woman of any kind within the 19th century, if you weren't part of the upper class, to the point where and also your parents loved you and your family loved you, and they give you some freedom, a lot of bad things could happen to you. Domestic violence was not, it was not something that people would help you with. You didn't have the rights that men had in America. So this narrator, he's pretty much in control of his wife. He's in control of his house. And everything was fine. He was kind to them. He was kind to everyone. Or at least that's what we think, right? Because he's the one writing this. So he could write whatever he wants. We're listening to this narrator tell us about his life and why he's about to face the death penalty. And so everything's fine again. And so there's this one instance where he starts beating up on the animals, just beating them, being cruel to them. He starts, arguing with his wife, cursing at her, just doing whatever he wants. And we know throughout this work that alcohol is a heavy influence. Because of temperance, before temperance, before the U.S. government started really regulating alcohol and looking into it, seeing how it's processed, how much alcohol goes into every beverage and all that, this and that and the third, alcohol was just pretty much going around freely. And there was different dosages and different beverages here and there. So you could drink one drink and be completely intoxicated, because in the past, alcohol wasn't that heavily regulated. So this man is pretty much getting blacked out drunk. He's coming home, and he's taking it out on everybody in the household. And so this cat by the name of Pluto, who he loved at first, or who he take care of at first, is now getting a beat down, is now getting, just tortured. And it comes to this point where there's this altercation where the Pluto ends up biting the narrator, because the narrator was hurting Pluto, and then the narrator just pretty much takes out an eye. He went Hammurabi. He just took out the Hammurabi handbook and just took out this cat's eye, and the rated R beatdown began, and it ends up in him hanging this cat later on in the short story in his garden, of all places. And then the cat comes back, right? The cat comes back, but the cat doesn't come back until this man's house burns down. And we're not really sure who burned the house down. It's just that the house burned down, and him and his wife, everybody in the house make it out safely. The animals don't. The little monkey dies. The goldfish, the birds, every animal, everything goes up in flames. So in all of his finances go up in flames because, everything was in the house. And so this narrator, he's now poor since everything burned up. He moves to a poorer location, to a poorer house. And then the cat comes back. So Pluto, the second edition comes back. And this is when this short story just becomes scary. So Pluto 2, he's not really Pluto. They don't call him Pluto. The story here doesn't tell us if this is a ghost, if this is... The story doesn't tell us what this is. Yeah, the story doesn't really tell us what the second cat is. We don't know if this is a second cat, or if this is a ghost, or we don't know. For me, I feel like it's a ghost, but don't take that, that doesn't hold a lot of water because we're not really sure. I'm not really sure. It's not really specifically stated that this is a ghost, but the way that the narrator sees the second cat, he sees it as missing an eye, just like Pluto missed, well, he ripped out an eye from Pluto's head. And also, this new cat has this blotch of white hair on its breast area, on its chest. And it reminds the narrator of this cruelty, this horrific side of himself that, he killed a cat. And he murdered a cat and then hung it in his garden. So now the narrator is not happy. He's not at ease. This cat keeps sleeping on his chest and breathing on his face, the second cat. So now the second cat is tormenting this narrator, and he can't sleep, right? He can't sleep. His life is not going well. And then the story even gets darker because somehow the narrator, his wife, and this cat are going to the cellar. The cellar. The cellar. And this is where you know something bad is going to happen. Because cellars are never good places. I will never own a cellar because nothing good ever happens in a cellar. And cellars are for one purpose. For most people use them to store alcohol. And that makes me think about the 19th century again, because again, one thing that really had its thumb on the 19th century was alcohol. So the cellar reminds me of alcohol. This pretty much the thing that's making this man, it's one of the things that's making this man do all these heinous acts. He's in the cellar, and from the cellar, what's happening is that it's damp, right? It's not a good place to be. It's damp. It's wet. It feels dark and gloomy and grim. And I don't know what to take from it. And if you read the short story, you don't know what to take from it. And, the cat is there. It's dark. His wife is there. And the narrator is just like, he has an axe with him. Why did he have an axe with him? Oh, my God. That's the perfect plot for a horror movie. Who goes into a cellar? Oh, wait, why did you even need a cellar? Why did you even need an axe for the cellar? He had an axe with him. That's so strange. He had an axe with him, right? And he's going down to the cellar with an axe. Again, a cellar is where people store stuff. I don't think you're going to store an axe in the cellar. But he has an axe with him. His wife is with him. The cat is the ghost cat or whatever cat that is with him. And it comes to a point where he wants to kill the cat, so he takes the axe and he was about to swing. His wife, goes to the cat's defense, and she tries to hold him back. And he's like, no. And he takes the axe and drives it into her brain. And then he's like, well, how do you get away with murder? If you see what I did with that Netflix show. So he goes into how to get away with murder mode. And he stuffs his wife's body in the wall of the cellar. And, yeah. And he thought that was a good idea. So he literally calmly thinks about his wife's murder, take apart the wall, put his wife in the wall, and seal it back up. Yeah. Then he feels a lot better after committing murder and murdering his wife. He doesn't feel any remorse. He doesn't feel anything at all. And he just goes back to his regular life. Yeah. And also the cat runs away. The second cat, the ghost cat, it runs away. And then he sleeps. Of all things, he sleeps. Jesus. So the cops come. Yeah, of course the cops come. They search his house. he's like cool. He's like, you know what? I hid the body. There's no fingerprints at this point. I mean, this is the 19th century, so the best thing that cops could do back then was ask questions and look for clues. I'm assuming, because I mean forensics wasn't a thing, and now you can just take a piece of hair and figure out the whole mystery. But the 19th century, I mean, you had to bring out a Sherlock Holmes. You had to bring a Hercule Poirot. You had to bring out someone from the country to come inspect. But no, the cat solved this murder. Of course the cat solved the murder, because the second cat, was in the wall with the dead body. This is why I believe the cat was a ghost. And the cat meowed or made some noise, and, well, the cops tore apart the wall. Well, of course, it had to be of the cellar, because that's where he put the body. And, yeah, they discovered the murder, and he's on his way to being hung. Because he killed his wife, and he was a drunk, and he killed his wife, he lost all his property, and he was a drunk. And that's the summary. That's literally what happens in it. I mean, in terms of deeper meaning, in terms of analysis, this is just terrifying. That's my first idea of it. This man, that whenever you have a narrator that doesn't care about anything, doesn't care about any human beings, just slaughtering and killing and hanging and chopping his wife, you got to be scared of that person. I was very much scared. So yeah, we don't see him being hung. We don't see him finishing his punishment, because, I mean, well, he is also the narrator, so I don't know how, because he's writing this, so he's the narrator, so I don't see how he's going to write his own murder, because, I mean, you would have to be there to recognize your own murder and then write about it, but he's not there, because he would be dead, so there's a reason why you don't see his murder at the end of the work, because, he's the one being hung. So, yeah. So he's pretty much he's gonna be hung. This is the 19th century. They didn't have time for lollygaggery. That's, I don't think that's a word, but they didn't have time for lollygaggery, and yeah, he pretty much would have faced that. So in terms of even deeper meanings in this work, you see domestic violence within the 19th century. You see kind of like a comment of the 19th century, because the 19th century of America was literally a century of a massive party that never ended, because kids were drinking, adults were drinking. Well, the women weren't drinking, but kids were drinking, adults were drinking. Well, we're talking about white people here. So adult white men were drinking a lot of alcohol. They died early, beat their wives, and it was a horrible place to live for black people, white women, any women of any kind. 19th century was not fun for minorities. And one big reason of that was alcohol, because alcohol was not regulated. Alcohol was just being processed, and people were just chugging it down. Well, I mean, you can't entirely blame them, because in the 19th century, clean water wasn't really that widespread, if at all. I mean, alcohol was safer to drink. If you had a glass of water within the 19th century, you pretty much, well, in most cases, you probably died, because it wasn't really clean. So alcohol was pretty much all they really had that wasn't going to kill them, because, I mean, it's alcohol. Whatever germs got in there, it's alcohol. It's going to kill them. So, I mean, yeah. But yeah, you see domestic violence, you see that animal cruelty, you see that commentary on the time, the 19th century, women facing domestic violence and being beaten up by their husbands, and the inequality between men and women. You also see just how horrific alcohol can be. I mean, we don't know who caused the fire in the house, but, I mean, this man is always drunk, so he might have set the house on fire. I mean, he's beating his wife, killing animals, and hanging things. If he's this drunk all the time, he could have lit a match and forgotten about it and set his own house on fire. He's the narrator. He's pretty much not, you can't really rely upon this narrator because he's dying. He's facing the death penalty. He's killing people. He's drunk half of the time. So we really can't know if he's telling us the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And also, I mean, we only really get the full picture by the end of the work because that's when we see him, swinging an axe, swinging swinging weapons, taking out eyeballs and hanging cats and chopping axe into people's heads. And, yeah. So, interesting short story. Terrifying short story. Edgar Allan Poe is something. Is certainly something. Really great writer. He always gets under my skin because, this is really, it can be really disturbing. But that's my view on this work. That's what I saw in it. That's my perspective. Again, there's always more to the story. If you want to know more, find more themes and ideas within this work, explore it more. But this is just to let you guys know what you're going to expect, what you can see, and what's going on with this. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment. It will probably save some penguins if you subscribe. I'm just saying.